Hey there, Trailblazers, I hope you guys are all doing well. So if you clicked on this video, then you're probably heard some very interesting news floating around about a potential limited 5-star selector coming to Honkai Star Rail in version 4.0, and you're wondering what this actually means and, more importantly, who would even be worth picking from it. Well, today we're going to break all of that down and talk about why this selector could be a really big deal, especially depending on what your account is currently missing, and also highlight some tips on how to make the most out of your pick. As always though, let me just provide the usual disclaimer that everything mentioned in this video is based on leaks and early information, so nothing here is officially confirmed and things can always change before the update goes live. With that out of the way, let's jump straight into it. Okay, so according to some brand new info from a very reliable source, in version 4.0, all players will be getting a free 5-star selector with a total of 7 units to pick from. Now, this is specifically mentioned to be a proper character selector similar to the one given away in version 2.7, and not just new characters that you can claim from the in-game 5-star shop. However, rather than just giving away standard banner units like the 2.7 selector, this new selector will instead feature old limited 5-star characters from previous patches, which makes it extremely valuable for players who may have missed some of these units on release. So let's go through each character and break down who they are, what they bring to the table, and whether you should seriously consider picking them. The first free character on this selector is none other than Acheron, who is a lightning nihility unit. She was one of the most dominant damage dealers in the game thanks to her very self-sufficient kit. She doesn't rely heavily on traditional buffers and also scaled extremely well even with minimal setup. However, these days she's far outclassed by much better DPS characters and can only somewhat keep up with them through strong vertical investment. So unless you plan on either heavily investing into her or really like the character, I would advise against picking her from the selector. It's also worth noting that Acheron's kit is fairly straightforward, which makes her easy to understand and use, but the damage ceiling is just not as competitive as newer units. The next character on the selector is Acheron, who is an imaginary preservation unit and still one of the strongest sustained characters in the entire game. His shielding is extremely consistent, he provides strong defensive utility for the whole team, and he even contributes meaningful damage on top of that. Unlike DPS units, sustained characters tend to age very well over time, and Acheron is no exception. If your account struggles with survivability or you don't already own a premium sustain, Acheron is easily one of the safest and most valuable picks on this selector. Additionally, he works very well in almost any team composition, which makes him a versatile pick for both new and veteran players. After that, we have Sparkle, who is a quantum harmony unit and remains one of the strongest supports in the game even now. She excels at enabling skill point-hungry teams and massively improves hypercarry setups through her skill point generation and turn manipulation. This becomes especially important going into version 4.0, since she has extremely strong synergy with both Yao Guang and Sparksy, who are both elation units that benefit heavily from smoother rotations and flexible skill point usage. On top of that, with Evanesha releasing in version 4.2 as another elation unit, Sparkle is also expected to play a major role in the rumored mono elation team archetype. If your account already has solid DPS characters but lacks a top-tier universal support that will remain relevant long-term, Sparkle is easily one of the best and most future-proof picks on this selector. One more thing to note is that Sparkle's utility extends across almost all team types, so even if you don't immediately build for elation, she can still contribute heavily in many setups. Next up is Jinglu, who is an ice destruction unit that was once considered one of the strongest DPS characters in the game. Over time though, and even after her recent buff, she has been noticeably power crept by newer units that offer higher damage ceilings or more impactful mechanics. While she is still fully capable of clearing endgame content with enough investment, she no longer really stands out in the current meta. Because of this, unless you either really like Jinglu as a character or are willing to invest heavily into her to keep her competitive, I would generally advise against picking her from the selector. That said, she still has a simple and straightforward kit that's easy to use, which can be a plus for newer players who might prefer something less complicated. Then there's Dan Hung Il, an imaginary destruction unit that was known for his extremely high burst damage when properly supported, but over time, he has been heavily power crept by newer DPS units. While he can still function in endgame content with proper vertical investment, at E0 his kit no longer stands out in the current meta, and he requires careful skill point management to perform well. So unless you really like Dan Hung Il or are planning to invest heavily into him, such as getting his E2, I would generally advise against picking him from the selector. One positive to mention is that his mechanics still make for satisfying gameplay for players who enjoy high-risk, high-reward playstyles, so he isn't without merit. Next choice on the selector is Kafka, a lightning nihility unit who is the main enabler for damage over time teams and opens up a very different playstyle compared to traditional DPS. If you already own or plan to build DOT-focused units, Kafka is incredibly strong and can remain relevant for a long time. On the other hand, if DOT teams aren't part of your plans, she's less valuable. So pick her if you want to build around that specific playstyle. Otherwise, there are more generally useful options on this selector. She also brings a very unique and fun mechanic to the game, which can be a nice change of pace for players who enjoy experimenting with different team compositions. And finally, the last pick from the selector is Jing Yuan, a lightning erudition unit that specializes in AoE damage. While he was more useful when he first released, even with newer supports and relic options, he hasn't aged particularly well and doesn't really compete with the newer AoE DPS units in the game. He can still handle some multi-target content, but his damage output and utility are relatively underwhelming compared to more modern options. Because of this, unless you really like Jing Yuan or don't have any better AoE units, I would generally advise against picking him from the selector. Overall, the best unit to pick from the 4.05-star selector can feel a little daunting, but the choice will always depend on your account's current roster, your pull plans, and what content you focus on. For endgame relevance, Sparkle and Acheron are my recommended picks from this selector. Sparkle remains one of the strongest supports in the game, with excellent synergy for both the new version 4.0 units and potential future Elation teams. Acheron, on the other hand, is a premium sustain unit who provides consistent shields and team-wide survivability, making him valuable in almost any lineup. This makes both of these units the best overall options from the new selector, especially if you're looking for picks that will remain relevant and useful for the long term. So that's basically everything we currently know about the new upcoming 5-star selector coming to the game in version 4.0. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to give it a like, and also don't forget to subscribe to my channel in order to stay up to date with all the latest HSR news and information. That's it for now, so I'll be seeing you in the next video.